Sunday, October the 4th. I've entitled this, Really? God has promised that for me? Really? The thought occurred to me this morning in morning prayer, 9:30 to 10:15. You're welcome to come. We pray in the Spirit over the day, over God's purpose and whatever He wants. It was a very, very strange thought that just came into my mind, into my thinking. And it was this: there is no tomb of the unknown soldier in heaven. I thought about that. There's no tomb to the unknown soldiers in heaven. You're all known. You're all known of God. He knows everything. Every soldier. The time of reward is coming. There's no tomb of the unknown soldier. You're all known. It kind of forms a little bit of a foundation for the message that I want to bring. Really? God has promised that for me? Really? Here we go. Well, Russ, you're going to talk a little bit about the magnitude of the promise that was made to David. What does that have to do with me? Good question. Interestingly, Faye mentioned the book of Ephesians this morning. Not sure the last time the book of Ephesians been mentioned. Ephesians 2:11 says this: Therefore, remember that you, us, I think everyone, remember that you, once Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision made in the flesh by hands. That's what we were labeled by Jews, the Gentiles, at least I am. Ephesians 2:12, that at that time you were without Christ. This was prior to our accepting Christ and what He did for us. That at that time you were without Christ, Ephesians 2:12, being aliens, so we were away from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise. God wanted to establish and bring into the earth covenants. He did them through a covenant nation. But His intentions never were that they would be the exclusive property and rights and privilege of that covenant, that particular covenant, blood covenant nation by the terms of bloodlines. It was His intent for the whole earth. But that privilege would come through that nation, the nation that He chose, the nation of Israel, and Christ would fulfill the requirements of the law perfectly and would be able to die for all of us, and that the covenants, what we were alienated from, that we were aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise. So it used to be, prior to Christ, all those wonderful covenants were not available to us, having no hope and without God in the world. That's where we were prior to Christ. But God didn't want us to miss it. Ephesians 2:13. But now, in Christ Jesus, you who once were afar off have been brought near by the blood of Christ. It's the blood of Jesus. When we get to heaven, we won't find a tomb of the unknown soldier. Everybody's known. Everybody's known. But you will find, I don't know if God permits us to enter into that throne area. I'm going to say I think He will. I don't know how all of that works, but I do believe the Scriptures support that what you'll find is the mercy seat. The mercy seat is blood sprinkled. It's blood sprinkled, and it's by the blood of Jesus. As we have been brought near it's the blood of Christ that has brought us near. Ephesians 2:19. Now therefore you are no longer strangers and foreigners. We're not a stranger, we're not a foreigner, but fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God. It's been done because of the blood of Jesus. So now I want to look at a very significant thing I have on here, the Sure Mercies of David. As I said about 2 months ago, I knew nothing about the Sure Mercies of David and have been intently studying this over this past several months, the Sure Mercies of David. I noticed one thing is that It's mentioned this way, the sure mercies of David, twice in the Scriptures. The mercies extended to David are mentioned many, many, many times. But the declaration, the sure mercies of David, they're always plural. There's two of them. One is in Isaiah 55, one is in Acts chapter 13. I think I've given that, Acts 13:34, when it was talking about the biblical basis upon which Jesus was raised from the dead. See, God made a promise to David that you are always going to have someone on the throne that's from your lineage, actually from your direct bloodline, from your seed. You are always going to have one. Inherent in that was the provision that God knew that there would come the Christ. God knew he would die, and he would experience death and hell and all of the punishment, all of the wrath of God that was due for sin, our sin, the sin of mankind, that he would experience that as the spotless Lamb of God, but he, Jesus, the Christ, would be innocent, and so God, he was going to raise him from the dead. So the only way that that promise could be fulfilled, God understanding the future, he understood and knew there is coming a day, David, you don't understand it right now, but there is coming a day in which the mercy of God is going to be extended to Jesus, who paid the penalty for all of our sins. It was inherent within it was he had to be resurrected. So this, where I have this one verse I've pulled out, Acts 13, is where Paul in Antioch, not the Antioch that most of us are aware of, this one's way up in Turkey, the Antioch where there were lots of Gentiles, Jews and Gentiles, and he was giving this message, and he was explaining, he was declaring the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and he was explaining 3 Old Testament promises that resurrection was based on. Psalm 2, you are my son, today I have begotten you. This coming out of Isaiah 55 is the covenant of the sure mercies of David, and you will not permit my soul to see corruption. He proclaimed all 3 of those. I give you, so he said, and he that raised him from the dead, no more to return to corruption. He has spoken this, so the Father spoke this. He has given you, I give you the sure mercies of David. That was a promise to David that there would always be someone from his line on the throne. There would always be. Well, that person ultimately had to continue to be on the throne and had to be on the throne for eternity. The promise was so much bigger. That's the way the promises of God are. They're so much bigger. They are so much bigger than what we know, what we've been taught, what we've learned, what we walk in. They are so much bigger. David wouldn't have understood that there would be a king who would be on the throne. It would be from his line, his lineage, and it actually would be through all of this era of time. It would be through the millennium. It would be through heaven, which never has an end. There would be a king on the throne from the lineage of David. Well, because Christ came to die, there had to be a resurrection. It had to be. It's like there's no end to this. The sure mercies of David. And I've given Isaiah 55:3. Incline your ear and come to me. Hear, and your soul shall live, and I will make an everlasting covenant with you, the sure mercies of David. It is an everlasting covenant. It's been fulfilled and continues and extends through Jesus. And so, what are the sure mercies of David? What is this covenant? What is it that's too good to be true? Just what is it? The sure mercies of David. So I want to look back at 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 8, where God revealed that covenant of sure mercy, spoke it to David, revealed it to David when it had arisen out of David's heart. He'd established the tabernacle of David. He'd built his house. He had a real fine house, I'm sure, made out of that limestone that's all over Jerusalem, the old city. I'm sure it was a limestone palace. and the tent. He made a tent, the tabernacle of David, where the ark of God was. It was a place of great celebration, and that's where David said to Nathan the prophet, look, I'm in my nice limestone house, and the Ark of the Covenant's dwelling in this tent. And so Nathan said, do what's in your heart. That night, God spoke to Nathan and said, I haven't talked to this with anybody. I've got something for you to tell David. That's what he told you. Now, I want you to tell this to David. And God is going to relay what the sure mercies, they're plural. What are the mercies? The sure mercies of David. And that are available to you in your relationship, in a relationship with Christ Jesus. These are yours because of blood. These are yours. Now, therefore, this shall you say to my soul, thus says the Lord of hosts, I took you from the sheepfold, from following the sheep, to be a ruler over my people, over Israel. Part of the sure mercies of David is, I've said it this way, I got you here and will get you there. That's what he told him. I got you here, and I will get you there. I remember in just one manifestation, why are you here at this point in time? Where you are in life and so on. Are you responsible? Have you done all this? In the covenant of sure mercies, God says, in essence, a little more King James-ish in the Bible than my kind of slangish, but I got you here, I'm going to get you there. My mom graduated from Wheaton College in Wheaton, Illinois. My dad almost finished his senior year. He didn't quite graduate. Well, they both had a desire to have 6 children. That was their goal, 6 children who all had a relationship with Jesus Christ and who all graduated from a Christian college. My mom and dad intended for that to be Wheaton College, at least for me. That Wheaton, Illinois, that's where they went. My mom was a graduate, and I remember when it came time for me to apply for college, and that's all they spoke about. They didn't speak about any other option, and what they wanted, what they had been to, Mom had graduated from, is they wanted their son, Russell, to go to Wheaton College, Wheaton, Illinois. And I went through the application process, and in the 8th and 9th grade, I wasn't a real good student. I had baseball on my mind, and it's hard to have baseball on your mind and be a good student, and they were hard years for me. And my junior and senior year, I woke up and I had pretty good grades for those 2 years. I applied to Wheaton. I remember the day that letter came back from Wheaton College, and I was denied admission to Wheaton College. My parents freaked out. There were tears. There were letters that were written. I wouldn't have been surprised. My mother was a very good friend of Billy Graham's wife. They were in class together at Wheaton College and knew her very well. And I'm not saying they called Ruth Graham, but I wouldn't have been the least bit surprised because by that time they had notoriety, which God had established for Billy and Ruth Graham. They were so disappointed that I wasn't accepted, and that in spite of their best efforts, I just didn't make it. That was God. You mean sometimes God won't let something happen that you really, really want and think it's the best. He knew He had picked a wife for me, and she wasn't going to be at Wheaton. She was going to be at Bryan College in Dayton, Tennessee. That's where my wife was going to be, that He had picked for me. Now, I don't know how it was announced. He probably said to an angel, they want him to go to Wheaton, but I want you to go down there to that registrar, and I want you to cross that name off, Russ Porcella. He does not qualify. He had terrible grades in the 8th and 9th grade, and partly in the 10th. And he's no. It's a no. I want you to go and put a no in that person's mind. Russell Allen Porcella, no. Instead, I show up at Bryan College. That's not what they wanted. That's not where they wanted me to be. But it's where God wanted me. He said to David, so, David's thinking, he said, I've done this, I've had all these battles, sure, I've done it in the name of the Lord. Really, even had a pretty significant battle with Goliath and won that, and I've built this house, and I've built this thing, and I brought the ark back. And he could have been thinking a lot of I, but he had a lot of God in his mind, because God said he was a man after his own heart. He wanted the enemy done away with, and he wanted God worshiped and honored. And so he starts off with Nathan, and God says, Nathan, you tell him, I'm the one who brought you away from those sheep. He was the youngest of Jesse's sons, and when Samuel came to town, he wasn't even included in the sons that Samuel brought to be tried out to who was going to be the king that Samuel was going to anoint. And David wasn't even there. Well, he's the youngest one, and he was out in the field with a few sheep. How in the world did he get from there to be king over the nation of Israel? God is the one. I brought you from following sheep to here. I did it. So I was at Bryan at the end of my freshman year, as you all know. I looked across the campus, and there was the pick of the campus girls. She wasn't on my list because I didn't see myself anywhere near eligible for the pick. And I heard myself say, that's the girl I'm going to marry. That's why I went to Bryan College. That's why God said no. That's why he had Fred go and tell the registrar at Wheaton, no, he's not to be accepted. I got you here, I will get you there. How is it during this time period we are here on this property and it's all paid for, and yes, we are far less in number than we would like to be. We're probably just about the right number to be a Gideon's band, and so we really did this. This was really a significant accomplishment. No, it wasn't. God is the one who got us here. Did we have to walk in faith? Absolutely. Did we have to make choices and decisions? Absolutely. But how did we get to this place? I try and sit before the Lord. What David did after Nathan gave all this pronouncement to him, the scripture says he went in that tabernacle where the Ark of the Covenant, and he just sat before the Lord. And in essence, he said, among the things, because it's recorded what he said, was, who in the world am I that you would have done this for me? I think to some degree, we sometimes function like maybe we're the unknown soldier. We're out here functioning, fighting for God, trying to do his work, trying to accomplish what he had. Maybe it's unknown. Maybe God doesn't even really know about me. I'm a really good candidate for the tomb of the unknown soldier in heaven. I got good news. There's no tomb of the unknown soldier in heaven. You're known. I just love, I'm backing up. I took you from the sheepfold, from following the sheep to be ruler over my people, over Israel. I did this. God speaking. I did it. What's among the promises that God's saying to you? I got you here. Yeah, well, it's been a pretty rough road, and I've made some pretty... God has given you the right to make decisions. And some of those decisions, wow, there's a lot of suffering with them. Well, God explains that a little later on. I'm not going to take my mercy from your line hereafter. Now, if they do wrong, there'll be prices, there'll be consequences. They didn't stop him from working, from intervening. Did God know ahead of time Bathsheba was coming 4 chapters later? Did God know that? Of course he knew that when he gave this to them. I just thought that Wheaton College was such a big thing in our home. There was such disappointment. And when my mom first met Faye, how it happened, she was on a singing quartet type thing, and the president of Bryan College took Faye and a couple other musicians to Miami, to a big church. And I told my parents, this was crazy, I told my parents, Faye, actually the girl I'm dating, I don't think I told them that's the girl I'm going to marry. I think I just said it's the girl I'm dating. She's going to be at Cedar Springs Presbyterian, Coral Springs Presbyterian on such and such a date, but don't go. And my dad, My dad was the kind that if you tell him, don't go, he went. I don't know why I did for graduation when I was I don't know why I did this. I said to my mom and dad, Dad, okay, now when you come, don't be wearing a hat. My dad never wore a hat. He didn't ever wear a hat when my parents drove up for graduation at Bryan College. My dad was wearing a hat. It just gives you a little idea of, and I know you're probably saying, I knew it all along. I knew that's the mold you came out of. I knew it. I knew it. And when Mom and Dad went to that thing, and the president of the college, of Bryan College, said to my dad and Mom, well, there's someone here I would like you to meet. He knew that I was dating Faye. They knew everything. Kind of like Google. They knew everything. And he introduced them. My mom said, she's beyond my wildest expectations and dreams for you, Russ. So I figured that's pretty good approval. But that happened because I was at Bryan. How did I get to Bryan? I got you there. I got you, he said in essence to David, I got you here. I'm going to get you there, wherever there was. The same is true for you. That's a covenant that's available to you. It's part of the sure mercies of David, the mercies of God that were extended to him. Number 2, 7 verse 9. And I have been with you wherever you have gone, and have cut off all your enemies from before you. It's interesting, this is almost covenant terminology. The term cut off is the term that's used when God cut a covenant with Abraham. This is the same term that's used. It's kind of like, it's a covenant term. I have cut off your enemies from before you. That's a phenomenal promise. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and have cut off all of your enemies. I've entitled this, I have been with you, delivering you in the past, and will be doing the same with you in the future. Sometimes you found yourself getting out of things that you wondered, how in the world did I get out of that? How? See, God's been watching over you. You are not an unknown soldier to Him. He is doing everything He can do. And in the midst of He has given you a free will, He's still God. He's still sovereign. He will still interject. His sovereignness was interjected into my life through that statement, because I was at the right place, but she was not on my list. And he said, he had Fred whisper in my ear, that's the girl, Russell, this is going to sound like your voice. It's really me, but it's going to sound like you inside your head. That's the girl I'm going to marry. I was at the right place at the right time. How was it that, in heaven, I want to ask that question. How was it that I came out of the administration building at that very point in time, was standing on the front steps, when Faye was walking across the triangle at that point in time, and I could see her, she was 50 feet away, in plain view, she was going over to the chapel at that time. And how did all that happen? I was standing, you were administrating everything, and it was very church-focused, and that's the girl I'm going to marry. I've been with you, delivering you in the past, and will be doing the same thing with you in the future, is what he told David. I've been there. And the reason that you have seen all of the victories you've seen is I have delivered you. Boy, that's a tremendous covenantal promise to call for the victories, the promises that God has made to bring before Him on a regular basis, which you'll see not today. David did that regularly. 2 Samuel 7:9. You have made, God's saying, continue, and have made you a great name, like the name of the great men who are on the earth. So I've labeled this way, I am your reputation maker. Now, many times we do a pretty good job of trying to wreck our reputation. What God said to David is, I'm your reputation maker. I have made you a great name in the earth. God is your reputation maker. And it seems like God delights in picking us up in a place where that appears so far from possible. I think of one biblical example, clear, is Gideon. God timed that moment where Gideon was languishing in the assault of the Midianites on the land of Israel. It had been going on for years and years. And he was hiding down in a little concave area, threshing wheat, trying to stay out of the view of the Midianites who would have come and taken it. And God picked that moment because God wanted to take him from the bottom of a concave area, threshing wheat, hiding. He wanted eventually to take him where he would lead the nation of Israel, just a small group, because he wanted Gideon to know it was God, to where he would stand on the rim of a big, huge area, not hiding, have a trumpet or a shofar in his hand, and have a torch, and have a pitcher that he would break, and so there'd be this loud crash of 300 pitchers breaking, torches in the air, trumpets going. God wanted to take him from the bottom of the concave area to where the edge of the rim. So speaks that there are times that God will take you from your mistakes, the messes you've made. I made an academic mess of my life during the early years. It was just an academic mess. It was awful. God took Gideon where he was hiding in the bottom of that well because he wanted to take him. And Gideon's opinion of himself, I belong to the smallest tribe, and of that small tribe in all of Israel, I am the least and the smallest tribe. You got the wrong guy. You got the wrong guy. You're picking the wrong guy. No, it was like at his time when he was the farthest from fulfilling the purposes of God, there's no unknown soldiers. He knows where you are. He knows what's going on. Many times he will take that kind of thing and turn it into the platform that you stand on. The Apostle Paul did that. God took him from as a madman going about to sacrifice and kill Christians, and had killed who knows how many, had how many thrown in jail, and was spreading it now from Jerusalem to other cities all the way to Antioch, not Antioch of Pisidia. That's the Antioch of Acts chapter 13, but up in a Syria area. God took him from that, caused so much suffering. And in the call, God said to him, you are going to suffer many things for the cause of Christ. You're going to stand boldly for the cause of Christ. So I'm taking you from a place of causing great suffering, where for the cause of Christ, you'll be willing to endure and deal with great suffering as you, I don't think God told him there, as you become the major writer of the New Testament. And that's where God took him. But where he got him on that journey, he got him when he was so far from what God's intentions were for him. I am your reputation maker. You may, as Saul at that time, that God and Jesus encountered him, that he could have said, reputation, my reputation, I'll never survive my reputation. Among many in Israel, I'm sure there were many who lost loved ones that for the rest of their lives they had a hard time dealing with Saul, who became Paul. God said to David, I just led a few sheep. How in the world am I going to lead a whole nation? I am your reputation maker. It's the covenant. It's the covenant of mercy, the sure mercies. 2 Samuel 7:10, moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own, and move no more. And I've put this, nor shall the sons of wickedness oppress them anymore as previously, since the time that I commanded judges to be over my people Israel, and have caused you to rest from all your enemies. And I've entitled this, I have a safe land for you. Yes, it's for the nation of Israel. I have a safe land for you. Somehow that was resident in my heart. When we were in a storefront building and it just wasn't serving our needs well, and we knew we needed to get out of this, and we tried very, 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 very hard to get out of it, and had a lot of young families, and many of them had real good jobs. TVA, we had many TVA employees. They were very well-paid engineers, and we discovered this piece of land. It wasn't for sale. They decided they would sell it, and then kind of the day came when, okay, now where are we going to take out a loan to buy the land? And it was in my heart, we're not going to take out a loan to buy the land. If God doesn't provide the money through us, or however He chooses to provide the money for the land, I know He has land for us. He has land for Israel. He has land for you. Part of the covenant is land. Part of the covenant is land. No, not going to borrow money. We will not borrow money. That was strongly opposed by some. It was mildly opposed by some, and there were a few people who thought, that's a pretty good idea, let's do it. Especially when we were just not many weeks away, and we still had a fair amount of money to raise, and not going to borrow money. If we can't come up with this money, the $70,000, actually $77,000, because we give a tithe. If we don't come up with that $70,000, we're going to lose it. Meaning, I made it very clear to the owner of the property, we'll drop our option, sell it to somebody else. Not going to, and we gave precious seed. I've told some of that story. We gave precious seed. People gave things very precious to them, significant amounts. I remember one man said at that meeting where I announced we are not borrowing money. And he said, well, I've got some money in the bank I could use. There was a woman there. My husband died, and his joy was his car. I think it was a Jeep, was his car. And he said, I'm going to sell the Jeep, and I'm going to give that money toward the purchase of the land. There were various ways that God moved upon people. We paid cash for it. I have a safe land for you. Part of the covenant. I have land. And this in the midst of the 2 Samuel 7, and the Lord tells you that He will make you a house. And 2 Samuel 7:12, when your days are fulfilled and you rest with your fathers, I will set up your seed after you who will come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name. Now, I believe that was talking about ultimately Jesus. And then he switched, and he's now talking about, God has Nathan talking about his son Solomon that's yet to come. He shall build a house for my name, and Jesus. I believe he's speaking of both of them at the same time. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. The only way that could happen is there had to be a resurrection. Because if Jesus was qualified, then he had to die. And he had to suffer the full wrath of God. Acts 2 explains that you won't leave my soul in hell. He had to experience hell. But he had to be, he would establish the throne of his kingdom forever. He had to be able to be forever. There had to be a resurrection. The sure mercies of David. And I have said, I will make it all happen. The future. How is it going to get done? How? You could have heard him when Jesus was crucified. Those who really understood, John, I could certainly hear John say, how? What's going to happen here? He was the answer. He was the Messiah. Now what are we going to do? Part of the covenant of promise, the covenant of the sure mercies of David, is that I will make it all happen, the future. Trying to condense that section that he spoke to. I will make it happen. I'm going to give you a seed line. Same is true for you. Same is true for me. How is it going to happen? I will make it happen. How? And he's at work all the time. I will make it happen. We've recently purchased, in the summer, we purchased a new vehicle for us. And we sowed heavily for that vehicle. We saved heavily for that vehicle. We prayed for that vehicle. We confessed that vehicle. It took longer than we thought. It took a year longer than we thought. There were some moments of, why is it not working? I don't know, but we've got seed in the ground. Let's not tear it up. Let's. And the day came when we realized we want a vehicle that'll pull a boat. And we were introduced to the realm of, we were Honda Odyssey. We were Odyssey people. Faye was an Odyssey girl. And that's what she wanted. So we were looking for an Odyssey, but it wasn't going to do good for pulling a boat. And we decided, we heard about the pilots and how we thought first about the Honda truck, Ridgeline, that they had a line of trucks, Ridgeline trucks. And I thought, well, that'd be great. We could buy a truck, Ridgeline. And that's what we'll get instead of an Odyssey. Faye eventually said, I'd rather not get a Ridgeline truck. Okay, that's it. Trucks are out. So we understood the pilot had a Ridgeline, so to speak, or the Ridgeline had a pilot frame. So we said, I said, I've got to get you where you got to be able to sit in a pilot and see what the pilot feels like, and because of this. And I saw there was a car lot that we've done business with before in the past. I looked on the web and saw that they had two pilots. One was a 2016, one was a 2012. We had a 2008 car. And I said, we'll go there and we'll just look. We'll just look and get you in. They'll let you get in it and let you drive it so you can say you've driven a pilot. It was black. So a black pilot. I had no idea. I'm not even sure Faye knew it was a black pilot that she wanted. But she discovered after we got in it, it's black. I like this black pilot. Oh my goodness. How come that pilot was there? Is I got you here, I'll get you there. I will make it all happen. I'll make it happen. How is this going to work? We've sowed, we've given, we've saved. How is it going to work? I will make it happen. Then, whole year went by. That was discouraging. Kept at it. Kept saving, kept praying, kept proclaiming. When it came to us, kept proclaiming. And I'll pay for this, but Faye said, I love riding around in a black car because it makes me look like I'm important. And because all the important people in Washington ride around in black cars, so I'm riding around in my black car. So I've said to her, well, mafia people drive cars, so maybe they think you're a mafia wife instead of a big shot up in Washington. And so I will make it all happen. It's part of the covenant. But my mercy shall not depart from him. God speaking to David and saying, my mercy is not going to depart from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I removed from before you. And the mercy train will always be available. When we adopted all the children, we had 6. We adopted Heather, then we adopted 5, 12 years later, 14 years later. And so and they were grown. The youngest was 8, 7, turned 8 almost immediately, and the oldest was 14, and Heather was 14. So we had them from 8 to 14, And let's just say that's a very interesting task. We did it. I'm convinced we did what God wanted us to do. We don't encourage people to do that unless God's told you to do it and has angels around you with spears poking at you and saying, if you don't do what you've been told to do, this is going to hurt. It was interesting. And they came from such a wicked background, wicked parents, wicked family members. It was such a wicked background. And they would do all kinds of things. Just all kinds of things. And Faye and I, the idea came to us, maybe we ought to have a mercy train. When you could tell when the amount of sin increased in the house, and there was lots of things unconfessed, and you knew there were things some things you knew, and some things you just assumed, and we'd gather everybody around the table, and I'd say, I don't know, we did this 3 or 4 times. I said, today is the day of the mercy train. Now, the first time we did it, they had no idea what that meant. That means it's the mercy train. So here's the train. I don't know what it was, a cup maybe, and I'll put the mercy train in front of you. When the mercy train's in front of you, then you get to confess whatever you've done with no consequence. We didn't make it all easy because I did say, and if you know something that someone else ought to confess and you don't confess what you know, then when they get consequences, if they don't confess, you'll get consequences too. And you say, that's not much of a mercy train. Well, they got a chance to unload all the things they had done without consequence. And they actually got to where they look forward the day when Papa would say, Dad would say, this is mercy train day. And God said to him, he said, I will extend mercy to him and I will never take it away. There'll be consequences for his actions, but my mercy will not depart from him. The mercy train will always be available. 2 Chronicles 7:16, and your house and your kingdom shall be established forever before you. Your throne shall be established forever. And I've said this, God's saying, I have got forever covered. For you. I have got forever for you covered. What about? Just yield to the Lord today. These magnificent promises that are available to us through Jesus, the covenant that we were alienated from, isolated from, that was given to David, to the nation of Israel. But God's intention was there was going to come the Christ, and through his blood, it was then going to be available to all of mankind, Gentile and Jew. We are no longer aliens and strangers from the covenants of promise. This is one of the big ones, the covenant of sure mercies of David, given and revealed to David. And it's available to you. Put faith in it. Some of it I see God just does. Some of it, I've realized with time, had to put faith in it, had to proclaim it, had to call for it, had to stand on it. Some of it, it's like God just said, okay, now it's time for that to happen because this is in keeping with what I did with David, what is available, what Jesus' blood made possible. It's for you and it's for me, the blood of Christ. So I'm saying for us, the 2020 election, humble yourself. I've said these things each week. Humble yourself means bend the knee, fasting. There's 31 mornings remaining. Fast the mornings. Call for mercy for the nations and for the enemies to be defeated. God said that he gave the nation and he told David, I'm the one who has given you victory. And so pray on the basis of the covenant of sure mercies. Well, that doesn't sound very merciful to me. God gave David phenomenal victories in war. Phenomenal. Read the Psalms. For some people, the Psalms are very difficult because they're very warlike in many sections. He was calling on the covenant of mercy. It was very covenantal. Call for mercy for the nation and for enemies to be defeated. Intercede for the harvest, the 2020 election that is coming up.